Now recording, we're live, and I'm very happy to introduce the young man and engineer, Raf Pacheco, very young, talented bachelor in biochemical engineering. Raf, thank you very much for accepting to do the interview. I appreciate it.
Uh, Thank you. It's in biochemistry.
What is that?
My degree was in biochemistry.
Biochemistry.
Not
Biochemistry.
engineering.
Fantastic. Biochemistry. All right. Well, I have some questions. The first question is, Raf, what are some of the numerous applications of biochemistry, please?
Uh, some applications include medicine, nutrition, forensic science, agriculture, genetic engineering, and pharmaceutics.
Oh, very nice. Which one do you find the most useful? I mean, which one of these applications do you find interesting or appealing to you in a way?
The most appealing would be pharmaceutics and medicine
Really? Why?
because, uh, I just find it very interesting uh, how you can use molecules and create molecules to develop therapeutics to help people. And that's what I want to do.
So it's very useful in reality for humankind, for people, what you're trying to do or what you are already doing, right?
Yes, yes.
Very nice. Thank you very much. So here's question number two, Ralph. Pharmaceutical industry is very, very interesting. How do you see the pharmaceutical industry these days?
Mm, Well, uh, the market is experiencing significant growth. Uh, there is an upward trend. It's around 6.15% growth projected from 2024 to 2033. Uh, the pharmaceutical industry is mostly focused on problems related to blood, cancer, the musculoskeletal system, and immunology, but less focused on respiratory, hormonal, and reproductive systems. And also, there are some regulatory requirements from the FDA and CDC to uh, that increases the cost and time to develop new drugs.
Uh,
And there is currently a focus on personalized cell gene therapies or personalized medicine. For example, stem cell transplants for leukemia using viruses as vectors to insert healthy genes into the patient's DNA to treat cystic fibrosis, which is scarring of the lungs.
wow, that looks really, really impressive. What's your personal opinion about all these applications? What do you think about them?
Mm, I find them very interesting. I don't know uh, a lot of detail about them, but it would be interesting to study these techniques and learn more about them.
Right, exactly, exactly. So, uh, you can you mention three? I'm sorry. Before I have another question, which are the challenges and achievements of pharmacobiology? Which do you see as great achievements in history in this aspect, Ralph?
Oh, the challenges uh, are mostly related to regular regulatory compliance. The cost of research and development is very high. Uh, the industry wants to protect its patents, so data security is top priority. And most importantly, they are focused on personalized medicine. But uh, the caveat with that is that there are regulatory and ethical considerations for that. So they want to see how it's in.
Right, right. Which are some of the ethical constraints? It's a sub question belonging to this question. Some of the ethical concerns that you see that can interfere in the research. Sometimes we get concerned that, oh, it's a human being, we shouldn't do that, or it's too, we cannot, we shouldn't be doing experiments with humans.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
What's your viewpoint about that? Some people say
It's
that we,
ethical or not
yeah,
to.
go ahead, please.
Yeah, uh, in general, I would say it's not ethical to uh, do experiments on humans if there's a high risk of harming them, especially.
Yeah, but then how are we supposed to develop new pharmaceuticals that are intended to precisely help human beings with severe diseases or maladies?
We can do experiments on mice and rats because their genome is very similar to ours and their metabolism as well. I'm not sure about the details, but that is what I've heard.
Okay, just for our audience, can you define what a genome is?
Genome,
Yes, please.
it's the set of genes in the person's body, and each gene uh, can code for a specific protein that is used as part of the body for metabolic processes.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. A sub question from this second question. Um, well, from this third question, a sub question. When we talk about pharmacobiology and challenges and achievements, obviously we need to know, the people who are lay people like me, I don't know much about that. We want to know, how do medicines behave in the human body?
Mm,
How do medicines behave in the human body? What is the effect they do? How can we classify pharmaceuticals, if there is a way to do it?
the overall effect, so the mechanism of pharmaceuticals is uh, they tend to bind and target enzymes. And when they react with the enzyme, um, it causes a loss of function on that enzyme.
Okay. All right. And some pharmaceuticals are quite aggressive to the human body, and some others are not so severe. Is that true?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. Some of the pharmaceuticals have a very strong effect in the human body, sometimes lateral effects.
Yes, especially anti-cancer agents. They are very toxic to the human body. Uh, Not so much the anti antimicrobials because the genes in the microbes are different than the ones in the human genes. And also for the antimicrobials, they tend to target the microbe's exterior wall and degrade the wall in order to insert the necessary medicine so that the microbe can die.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Well, let's go to our question number 4. And that is great discoveries and inventions or developments in your area. If we can mention 3 of the greatest discoveries and inventions or developments
There
that
are
you
several, but the first is insulin, which was developed in 1921. Insulin helps regulate the amount of glucose that enters the cell from the bloodstream. Uh, it's a hormone, and it antagonizes glucagon. Uh, so they have opposite effects. Glucagon signals the liver and the muscle to convert stored glycogen, which is a polymer or multiple strands of glucose. Uh, so it converts glycogen into glucose, which can then be used by cells to convert the glucose into energy. And insulin, the insulin hormone, signals liver and muscle to store glucose in the form of glycogen, which decreases blood glucose levels.
Oh, I see. Wow. Insulin seems to be, yeah, okay. All right. That seems to be a very, very important hormone. What other hormones do you see important in the human body that
Uh,
we produce?
well, another hormone is estrogen and progesterone. So in 1950, some scientists made birth control pills, which are synthetic estrogen and progesterone. And this estrogen and progesterone bind to the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary gland in the brain. This suppresses the production of follicle stimulating hormone so that follicle maturation is inhibited, so there's no ovulation, and thus you don't, uh, the baby is not developed and there is no, what's it called? The sperm cannot penetrate the egg.
Okay, I see. All right. Well, there are some people that, like in our family, that have a very high level of T, the T hormone, right? And other people, when they are aging, apparently aging, they are in their 60s, 70s. I have an uncle who claims to be very active at 84. But he admits of ingesting this blue pill. What's your thought about that blue pill?
Uh,
is it is it
so
synthetically made?
it is what synthetically made.
The blue pill to increase the testosterone levels?
Uh, I haven't done research on that, but I think I, I would think if they were to do a pill for testosterone, that it would be synthetically made, because I think overall it would be cheaper for the pharmaceutical industry to synthesize testosterone using other available molecules that they already have in abundance.
All right, I see. There are multitude hormones that are naturally produced or segregated by the human body, I suppose, by the glands. These hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, progesterone, can they all be synthesized and produced artificially, like you just said about insulin? Or is that a challenge? Is that something we want to achieve? Or that's not a worry or concern of the industry? What do you think about that, Ralph?
I think it could be synthesized. However, um, there are various steps in the synthetic process uh, that require a lot of reagent, and that could be very expensive to the pharmaceutical industry. Um, Maybe they could, instead of doing a complete synthesis, maybe they could do a semi-synthesis. So, for example, starting with uh, a natural hormone and then adding or subtracting substrates to increase the binding affinity.
What is a substrate?
Substrate,
Yes.
um, it's a molecule that can bind to the active site of a of an enzyme.
I see. And the purpose of the substrate?
The purpose of the substrate is to bind to the enzyme with as high affinity as possible in order to decrease the rate of the enzyme converting other substrates, other natural substrates into products.
Okay. It's all very, very interesting and very, it's impressive. Another sub question from the same question. Uh, who sponsors the pharmaceutical industry? Who are their allies? Who are they working with? Who pushes the pharmaceutical industry in one direction or another?
Uh, I think, well, partly government and partly, uh, I think, uh, what's it called? Other private corporations.
Okay. Which are the leading pharmaceutical companies in the world and in the US for once?
Mm, I'm I'm not sure exactly, but some renowned ones are, for example, Pfizer, AstraZeneca. Uh, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's very, very interesting. I have another question. What is the role of hormones and glands in our body? What role do hormones and glands play?
Mm, well, so depending on the type of hormone and receptor. Okay, so first, the endocrine glands release hormones into the bloodstream. These hormones travel throughout the bloodstream and bind to an appropriate receptor. And once the binding occurs, depending on the type of hormone and receptor, this binding leads to growth and development of various organs, sometimes reproduction, change in metabolisms, change in mood. And as an example, uh, follicle stimulating hormone is released by the anterior pituitary gland in the brain. And when it binds to the substrate, it stimulates spermatogenesis and oogenesis, so the production of sperm and eggs from the reproductive system.
That's very interesting. Some hormones help us face a sudden situation, a sudden danger. I don't know if adrenaline or cortisol play that role. Which are the hormones that help us react quickly to a sudden danger?
Adrenaline, that would be adrenaline.
Adrenaline. How does that work?
Uh,
How does that work?
well, when adrenaline, when adrenaline binds to its receptor, it triggers an increase in heart rate, which produces an increased flow of blood to the muscles, the skeletal muscles mainly, and it decreases flow of blood to the digestive organs. So, in the moment of danger, you're not thinking about uh, eating food, right? You're thinking about getting away from the danger. So, that's why the blood is diverted from the digestive system and is increased to the musculoskeletal system so that the muscles get increased nutrients, for example, in the form of glucose. And glucose underforms uh, glycolysis, which goes into which transforms glucose into pyruvate and produces ATP. Now, ATP is the molecule, is the energy molecule. So when ATP is produced, uh, you use that energy by hydrolyzing ATP. So water attacks ATP. It releases a phosphate molecule and it converts into ADP. So that hydrolysis produces even more energy. And then the body uses that energy as converts the chemical energy into kinetic energy so that you run away from the danger.
Okay. Sometimes there is not a chance to flight. You need to fight.
Yeah,
Take an example of a zebra that just faces a leopard. The zebra sees a leopard, and there is no way but to fight. There is no way to fly to escape. So she has to face this leopard. Does it make any difference? I mean, there must be seconds or microseconds in which the zebra or the antelope or another animal will determine that there is no way to escape. She has to face the leopard.
right. In that case, she would have to fight. But the chemical mechanism is the same.
It's the same. All right. Either flight or fight. It's the same mechanism of your adrenaline production or segregation, right?
Exactly.
Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. What about the other hormone, Raf? How about cortisol? How does that operate? How does that work? How's the mechanism of segregation of cortisol?
Cortisol. Mm. Oh, I'm not so sure. It's been so long before I'm not sure about cortisol. Oh, yes, of course. So cortisol is the stress response hormone. So for example, when you're stressed out, that's due to that's due to cortisol.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that too much exposure or too much segregation of cortisol could potentially have harmful effects on the body.
Yes, that's true.
Why would that be?
Well, if you're constantly under stress, then that means uh, you're using up too much energy. And then for a long period of time, that can have psychological and physiological effects that are very detrimental.
Oh, I see. I see. There is another hormone which I've heard is the hormone of happiness. I believe that is what serotonin.
Serotonin? Ah,
Ser-
yeah.
Okay. How does that work? How's the mechanism of serotonin?
Uh, okay. So it binds. to nerve cells in the brain and throughout the body. It elevates mood uh, and helps in wound healing, bone health, blood clotting, and increases sexual desire as well.
Serotonin. Okay. Is that produced naturally, right? There are no supplements to produce. It's not being synthesized like other hormones.
Mm, I know it is produced naturally. Yes, it's natural. Um, it's produced by the intestines and brain as well.
Okay. In your personal opinion, uh, which are the hormones that must be kept under balance? Not too much production, not too little, but there must be like a balance in the production of certain hormones. Which would those be, in your opinion?
Mm. Well, all horm uh, all hormones must be balanced. Uh, I learned in anatomy and physiology. The most important thing is for your body to be balanced, to achieve homeostasis. So all hormones are bad if it's too elevated or even too depressed.
Okay. You mentioned a key word, which is homeostasis. Can you elaborate on the concept? I believe it's a very important concept. What is homeostasis?
Homeostasis is the maintenance. So, for example, it's the maintenance of equilibrium within your body.
How do you achieve that? Through good diet, through exercise, through good sleep? How can you reach that level of homeostasis?
Well, it's reached, uh, yes. So, for example, what you can do is have enough sleep, regulate your diet, uh, do plenty of exercise. But, for example, if there's too much, uh, for example, in dehydration, you have to drink plenty of water, or else the your veins can become too. Oh, if your veins become too constricted, then uh, you have to drink plenty of water to increase the fluid so that veins can dilate more, so that there's more blood volume uh, going to your brain and heart as well, for example.
Wow, that's very, that's impressive. Really, really impressive. Well, let's go to the next question. Otherwise, I get distracted and I make more questions that I had planned. But okay, I appreciate very much your helping us with this interview, Ralph. I have a next question. I have another question. How does the pharmaceutical industry operate? How is the process that the pharmaceutical industries operate?
Mm, well, drugs are manufactured at production at chemical production sites. Then once the drug is purified, then it gets transferred to wholesale distributors, and these wholesale distributors send the drugs to pharmacies, where they are stocked and kept at pharmacies. And then the pharmacy benefit management companies negotiate prices with the insurance companies and process drugs through quality and utilization management checks.
Oh, interesting. Looks like a long chain, right?
Yes, it's very long.
Right. How do you maintain the flow of this long chain of production?
I would imagine regulatory programs uh, supervise these this flow from regulatory governments like the FDA and the CDC regulate and supervise this process, I think.
I see. Interesting. Interesting. The FDA seems to play a very important role in the regulations and constraints for the producers and distributors of these drugs, doesn't it?
Yes, it's to ensure the safety of the public.
How large an organization is that?
I'm not I'm not sure, but since it's a government organization, I would say very big, very big.
Big. Okay, yeah, I imagine. Right. Okay. We were talking a little while ago, about some of the ethical issues in the pharmaceutical industries. What should they take into account? Where is the boundary? How far can they go? When we talk about ethical issues, everyone seems to have a say, right? Well, I have this opinion, no, but I have the opposite opinion. Who is in charge when we talk about ethical issues, in particular in the pharmaceutical industries? What should they take into account?
Well, first is balancing profit and accessibility. So, for example, if the drug is very pricey, then uh, low income families will not be able to access that drug. Uh, so, there must be a balance in that. Also, uh, ensuring ethical standards in clinical trials and patient safety, because, uh, well, it would be unethical to um, perform a trial, a new drug in a phase 1 trial where uh, there's no proof yet that the drug works. So if they were to do that, there would be a high risk of uh, damaging uh, these patients. So that would be very unethical. And then also balancing persuasion and information. So, for example, when you look at all these commercials for pharmaceuticals, they have to put in some disclaimers, and in order to, so that we are somewhat informed of the dangers to these pharmaceuticals, of these pharmaceuticals to us.
Right. When you talk about these disclaimers, can it be that sometimes they are hidden under this jargon, too technical of a jargon that people cannot understand? However, they can say to the government agencies, "Well, there's my disclaimer."
Yeah,
They
that's
print a tremendously long formula that nobody understands, and
oh.
they say that's the disclaimer. What do you think about that?
uh, yeah. So, for example, at the end of a commercial, they uh, fast forward the uh, the speech. I think they put the speech on twice the velocity of the normal speech, so that you don't uh, pay attention as much to these disclaimers, because they want profit, right? So they want you to go and buy that drug. But
Right.
this regulation says that they have to put these disclaimers to protect the public. So they do it in a sneaky way.
Right. Well, the publicity should also be kept under an eye, right, under regulation, because they cannot just promote anything and, as you said, increase the speed twice as much so that people don't become aware of the possible lateral effects, right? And that should be bound to legal prosecution, if anything. I don't know what you think about that.
Yes, I think that is the right thing to do. And also, but also, uh, something they do that is more in line with that idea is that the pharmaceutical companies need to have transparent disclosure between the doctors and the companies, and so that the doctor's advice about what medication to take is unbiased. I'm not sure how effective that is, but that's one regulation.
Okay.
And another regulation is that they need to have transparent reporting by making pharmaceutical companies publish payments made to healthcare professionals. So there is a document, there's proof of what the pharmaceutical companies is uh, selling to the healthcare professionals so that they prescribe that medication to patients.
I see.
I think it's minimal. Uh, the effectiveness is minimal.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, all right. Let's go to the next question, please. In terms of research, what do you see as some of the best achievements of pharmacobiology? What has been a good and yeah, impressive achievement in pharmacobiology?
Mm, Well, there's three that I have found. The first is fecal microbiota transplants. So using microbes from feces uh, can increase the effectiveness of immunotherapy for gastrointestinal tract cancers. And the mechanism for that is um, the healthy bacteria found in feces prevent another type of bacteria called Clostridium difficile from growing, because Clostridium difficile is a bacteria that can harm the gut. It harms the gut and increases the risk of gastrointestinal cancer. So if you can use the good bacteria to fight the bad bacteria, then there's a decreased chance of getting gastrointestinal cancer.
I see. That's one of the discoveries, right?
Yes. The second discovery is antiviral drugs uh, to help clear the HIV from infected brain cells. So, for example, the mechanism for that would be chain termination during the extension of the DNA chain during reverse transcriptase process that carried out, which is carried out by HIV reverse transcriptase. So, for example, in order for the virus to replicate, it extends, uh, it uses reverse transcriptase to produce from RNA into DNA, and then that viral DNA can be put into the DNA of the host cell that can cause problems. Uh, for example, but we could also use viruses as vectors in order to help people. So, for example, if you have a viral vector that has uh, a therapeutic gene, then you can insert the viral vector into the host organism. Reverse transcriptase converts the RNA therapeutic into DNA. Then the DNA is inserted into the host gene using DNA integrase. And then once the transcription occurs, you can make a protein that has therapeutic effects that can help cure, well, help potentially cure a virus disease. The second achievement is gene therapy uh, to restore full-length dystrophin protein to treat Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a disorder uh, that has leading to muscular weakness,
Okay.
and this leads to a dysregulation of calcium homeostasis and oxidative damage, which causes muscle cell necrosis. And muscle cell necrosis is the degradation of muscle. So we could use gene therapy to prevent the degradation of muscle for those who have the Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
Oh, incredible. And the third one, you said there were at least three important discoveries.
Yes, those were the three.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
the first was the fecal microbiota. The second was antiviral against HIV. And then the third was the gene therapy to restore dystrophin.
Okay. Ralph, during colloquial chat, people sometimes confuse, I mean, not scientists, but lay people normally confuse viruses with bacteria. What is the fundamental difference between a bacteria and a virus?
Well, first, bacteria are, uh, sorry, viruses are biological zombies, meaning they are neither living nor dead because uh, by the biological definition, in order to be alive, you need to have cells. And more specifically, uh, the cell, in order to be alive, uh, you have to be able to replicate uh, using your own uh, biological substances like DNA. So the virus relies on cells to replicate. Therefore, it's not considered living. It, it's more like a parasite, whereas cells in themselves have the necessary biochemical machinery to produce their own energy and uh, yeah.
All right. Whereas a bacteria is a living organism that can replicate itself or reproduce. Is that a correct word to say?
Yes, yes.
Um,
Oh, yes.
okay. And when you talk about bacteries, people normally say that they are bad, but you're going to have many good bacteries that help you in many processes, fermentation, for example.
Most bacteria are actually good.
Wow, impressive.
For
How do
example,
they help us? Tell us a few examples.
uh, the gut microbiota, uh, they help us digest uh, the food that we eat. So, for example, we don't have the necessary enzymes to uh, digest cellulose. So, for example, when we eat celery,
Mhm.
it's the bacteria that have the enzymes to break down cellulose. And that's why you can eat celery,
Oh,
stuff like that.
oh, okay.
And then the good bacteria also prevent uh, the bad bacteria proliferating. So it's more like a defense mechanism against the bad bacteria.
All right. Very interesting. Very interesting. And how do bacteria reproduce?
Oh, they self reproduce. For example, in one cell, they undergo mitosis, so they break apart and they form two separate bacteria.
And that happens in a microscopic way, right? They are not visible for the human body, are they?
Yeah, they are not visible to the human eye. I think it's on the order of micrometers.
Micrometers. But you can see them in the microscope, can't you?
Yes, if the microscope is sufficiently
Powerful, of course. Obviously. No brainer, right? Yeah. All right. Very nice. Well, let's get to our last question. The last question is, Ralph, and once again, thank you very much for your helping taking these questions. What is pending in terms of making medicine more accessible for the average citizen or low-income citizens? What is pending? What do governments have to do? What do we as a society have to do? Someone has got to do something, right? Not just let our brother citizens and sisters die. I mean, they need to get some help from someone. What is pending?
well, from what I researched, uh, the current administration supposedly is planning to build on, strengthen, and protect Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act in order to help the citizens uh, be able to pay for medication. So maybe they have to work on something else in order to improve on that. Still pretty expensive.
Get a second or a third job or what?
No, no. Well, maybe some people might have to do that in order to be able to pay for everything, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, right.
And the second thing that I found is the American Rescue Plan Act and Inflation Reduction Act uh, attempts to lower prescription drug costs and health insurance premiums. So, again, trying to lower the cost of these medications.
Right.
But I think, uh, although uh, these plans are pretty good, I think we need to rethink how we deal with the healthcare industry. I think the healthcare industry, I think we should be able to, for everybody to afford medications they need. And that's why I think we need free healthcare.
Right, but that is not cheap. That can be quite expensive, in particular with a population of 330 million people like the U.S. has.
True.
So, how do you compromise one or the other? Yeah, low cost and accessibility, but the industry is not cheap. I mean, I don't think it is so inexpensive to produce them, is it?
It's all, again, it all comes down to profit, right?
Right. Yeah. Is there a possibility to sensibilize the population, the pharmaceutical companies, or the public? I mean, not researchers, the pharmaceuticals, to make not so much profit, but to try to be more human with society. I don't know how to call it, but
Yeah.
how can we make it more accessible to the people who are our brothers? I mean, the citizens are our brothers. They're not caimans or alligators. They are part of the same human species we are, right? Aren't we?
Maybe well, first increase that awareness,
Increase awareness. All right.
um, bigger population. Then maybe uh, as the population of people who are aware of this problem grows, maybe we could petition the government to do something about it. But I think we're a long ways from doing that.
Where would the first step be? What's the first step towards that long-term goal of making it more accessible and lower costs for the average citizen? What's the first step? Making people aware, you said?
Yeah, probably.
And how would we do that?
Oh, for the average American, probably just talking to your neighbor. I'm not sure. I really don't know.
There must be ways to promote it, to make people aware of I mean, it should be popular culture, should become known by everybody.
Mhm. Maybe once the neighbors talk about these things and the information spreads into larger and larger groups, maybe we could go on some demonstrations.
Right?
Uh, Hopefully, that would put pressure on the government to do something.
Right. Starting small campaigns, maybe.
Maybe, yeah,
Probably disclose not secrets, but to make it more accessible to make the information more accessible for people, perhaps. What do you think?
yes, definitely.
Very nice. Ralph, thank you very much for your wisdom, for sharing your knowledge and experience. I understand you had a brief technical training course in Idaho, I think.
Yes, I did.
How was that experience? Tell us a little bit about that. Did you
It
enjoy
was
it?
during my junior year. Yes, I did enjoy it. I was in Idaho, working in the Idaho National Laboratory, uh, doing experiments with Xenomonas mobilis bacteria, uh, and the research was uh, seeing how this bacteria, the possibility and the feasibility of using this bacteria to convert trash into energy.
Wow.
And the way this is done is to see if the bacteria can convert sugar, natural sugar found in compost, into uh, glucose. into no, sorry, the glucose found in natural sugars in natural trash may be converted into ethanol via a biochemical pathway in the bacterium. And then later on, maybe we could use the ethanol in industry to convert it into usable energy.
That's appalling. That's impressive. Which is the forecast? Would it be feasible to get there?
Mm, When I did the experiment, the percent yield of ethanol from the available glucose, I think it was around, I think it was around 10% at most. So we have a long ways to go to see how we can make it efficient.
If there was a way to enhance the process, how would we do it? I mean, how would you do it?
Hmm. Maybe we could use uh, a different bacteria that potentially may have a higher turnout rate that can process more glucose into the required energy. Or uh, maybe we could uh, use synthetic methods in conjunction with the, the bacterium. I'm not sure.
When you say synthetic methods, what does that entail? What does that mean? How do you incorporate synthetic methods as opposed to the traditional methods that you apparently were using?
So, for example, once we isolate the available glucose, the available, yeah, the available, yeah, the available sugar. And once uh, the bacteria converts the sugar to the purified ethanol, maybe we can uh, use some chemical methods to try to increase the ethanol yield using other chemicals. I'm not sure.
That sounds really interesting. Sounds really interesting and looks feasible. At least it sounds to me like it can be done. What do you think?
Yes, I mean, it looks feasible since I've performed the experiment, but yeah, it would. We would need to get it in the hands of other chemists who could increase the yield at a at an industrial uh, in an industrial size. So maybe industrialize this chemical, this biochemical process, so that there's more ethanol. But I'm not sure how to do that.
Well, it's a huge project of incredible magnitude. So yeah, that's a team effort. You're gonna need to be working with other chemists, other researchers. It's a fantastic idea. Really, congratulations, not only to you but also to the government who decided to to carry out this experiment. And well, once again, Ralph, thank you very much. I hope to have you soon again in our channel, talking about more of this interesting and fascinating field. Ralph,
Thank you.
I'll finish the recording.